Hello friends, and welcome to my studio. Are you ready to take your watercolor curiosity and skills to the next level? Well, you are in the right place. Go ahead, grab those supplies, and let's get started. I've spent the past 18 years cultivating my watercolor practice and working with students. And now I'm here to share my very best tips and tricks with you. I love spending time in my garden, and my work often features plants and animals. And if there's one thing I can promise you, it's that we'll never take ourselves too seriously. Today I've got my paper towel, my size 14 round brush, sap green liquid watercolor, and Theo violet. I'm going to start by adding water to my paint and also adding just a tiny bit of green to my violet to make that violet a little bit more of a natural color and to make it look less artificial. I'm also going to keep a small piece of paper for a paint swatch on hand, and I'm going to go ahead and test out my colors before I get started. To start off your rosette, you're going to use the very tip of your brush and you're going to make a tiny swirl to make the rosette's center. Next, you're going to make some crescent moon shapes. I'll go ahead and make one over here on this paint swatch a little bit bigger so that you can see it in more detail. You're going to start with 3 small crescent moon shapes around that center swirl that you started with. By starting off with 3 crescent moon shapes instead of an even number of crescent moons, you keep the rows from looking too symmetrical. You might have noticed that I'm turning my page as I go. You can see that tiny little space in between each petal of white, where the paper is still showing through, is a negative space, and that creates just as much of a drawing as actually putting your paintbrush to the paper and creating a mark. As I continue to add petals onto my rose, I turn my paper. Turning my page keeps me from smudging or getting my hand in the paint. A natural ombre effect is created as I work my way outwards from the center of the rose. Since I haven't had to load my brush with more paint, basically as I paint outwards, there is less and less paint on the brush, creating a lighter effect on the petals towards the outside of the rose. Once I'm satisfied with the size of my rose, I'm going to go ahead and add some very simple green leaves. I'm going to start at the tip of the leaf, and I'm going to do what I call a 2-stroke leaf, where I create 1 stroke to the left and then 1 stroke to the right, coming together to form the leaf. To create simple leaves, we start with the tip of the brush, do sort of a pressure smush towards the center, and then come back to that tip. That's going to give us those nice points on each end of the leaf. As I work around the outside of my rose, adding greenery, I just want to change up the size of the leaves. Even though they're all pretty simple and similar in shape, changing up the size adds variety and interest. I hope you'll click subscribe and share this tutorial with someone who you think might enjoy it. Stay watercolor curious.